Welcome everyone to this Astro Priestesses roundtable for the solar month of Taurus. Oh my, is so much going on. I know we always say that, but this is like really blowing my mind. And you can tell I have a little bit of a raspy voice. I've been definitely dealing with some of my own challenges around this timing and cleansing, clearing, up leveling as how I'm choosing to look at it, like it's happening for me, not to me, though have been moments where I felt like it was happening to me. So anyway, as we enter the Taurus Solar Month, we're going to have an event that is rare, and that is a total solar eclipse happening at 29 degrees Aries. So during the eclipse window, it's several hours for the eclipse to take place. The sun will move into Taurus, but the exact moment of the highlight of the eclipse is at 29 Aries, meaning the new moon is being described as being 29 Aries. So you may recall that in March, we had a new moon at the equinox. And we talked about how rare that is and doesn't happen all that often. Every 19 years, that'll happen. And in fact, in 2004, we had a new moon with the equinox. And on April 19th, there was a partial solar eclipse 19 years ago. It'll be another 19 years before we have something similar to this happen, but the sun eclipse moment will be at 0 Taurus in April of 2042. So we have this rare experience of a second new moon in Aries. And this connects to, a lot of people may or may not know about what's an official blue moon, what a real blue moon is. And I have a little video that I'll put in the show notes for people if they want to get all the details. I'm just going to briefly say that in Sky and Telescope published back in the 1940s, something about a blue moon being 2 full moons in a month. But prior to that, they had published that a true blue moon was 4 full moons in a season. So that would happen when there was a new moon or a full moon at the equinox or solstice, and then there would be 4 full moons before the next season started. And there would usually, when that happened, there would be 2 full moons in the same sign. So here we have the new moon kind of doing this exact same pattern, because we had the new moon at the spring equinox, and now we're having a second new moon in Aries. So we had the new moon in Aries, we're having a second new moon in Aries. It also happens to be a total solar eclipse, and it's creating a rare energizing of this coming time, of the time that we're moving into. Like, we've been in this rare time anyway, but it's just amplifying it, in my opinion. And so it's like a blue new moon. And I'm like, oh, of course, every moon phase has the same opportunities to experience 2 in the same sign, whether there's a first quarter, last quarter, new moon, full moon, all of that. Also, just another thing for people to know is that there are only every 3rd year, there'll be 13 full moons in a year. And that's also depends on where you start the new year. Are you starting it at the solstice, at the December solstice, going to December solstice? That'll happen every 3 years. Are you starting it with January 1st, going to December 31st? Actually, 2023, we're having 13 full moons this year. But it doesn't happen every year, because the 29.5 degrees from a full moon to a full moon means that it's mostly 12 times a year. But when you get this extra one, like we're having now, then it's like 29.5 days from a full moon to a full moon. So there's always a little bit left over. And then every year and every 3rd year, there's an extra full moon. So we're now we're experiencing this with the new moon, and we're having also at the same time Pluto square the total solar eclipse time. So this is a powerful new moon. It is like off the charts. I mean, and I thought the last one was amazing, but this one's even more amazing. And so I just feel like it's important for us to take a moment and to really tune into these mysteries. What is it that we want to commit to? What are we taking action towards? What are we taking ideally inspired action? What are we committing to? What's our cause? What's our mission? What's our purpose? And to do something at this solar eclipse new moon. Now, a total solar eclipse accelerates whatever our intention is. And so if you think about it, we won't see it in the US. I think it's only visible mostly in Asia, different places like that. But because it's happening at night, our time, so the sun's not even in the sky. But what happens in a total solar eclipse is the moon passes in front of the sun, covers the sun, day turns to night, and then depending on how long the moon lasts there, it can be 2 minutes to up to 5 or 6 minutes that it's night. Literally, the birds stop singing, the pressure drops. It's just like this stunning experience. And then boom, the light springs back and the day comes back. So it's like experiencing a day, a night, a day, like in this really rapid, speeded up thing. So we want to take advantage of that. And I know many cultures, they were freaked out by eclipses and they went and hid and didn't want to have anything to do with them. But it's all has to do with our belief and how we engage it. And so I had the opportunity to see a total solar eclipse in 2017, and there's going to be another one across the US in 2024. I highly recommend it. It was life-changing. I've seen lunar eclipses, I've seen annular eclipses, I've seen all kinds of eclipses, but I had never seen a total solar eclipse. And it was the most stunning experience I've ever had. So even though we can't see it, we can still tune into it and place our intention and attention on what it is that we want to be accelerating in our life at this time. So for me, it's always about magic, accelerating the magic, high magic, the magic of love, the magic of kindness, the magic of how we care for each other and care for our planet, all of that. So that's what I have to share about that. And I'm going to turn this over now to whoever feels ready to go next. And just, I'm so excited that we can do this together.
Thank you so much for speaking to that, Kaylin. It was so beautiful. And I was like there with the birds and the silence and recalling my own experiences too. Really powerful. And thinking about the fact that we got to have a new moon at the first degree of Aries, and then we get to have another new moon eclipse at the final degree of Aries, it does really emphasize that new beginnings, pioneering. What is it that we are creating direct from source? There's something really innocent about the energy of Aries where there's not as much of a filter. It's like what's coming in that it just feels instinctually important to act on. And it feels like we're getting a nice revamping of that, especially if we recall over the past month, we had Jupiter meeting Chiron and then Jupiter meeting the sun. And then we're carrying all of this energy into this eclipse portal. There's something really big that wants to expand about our instinctual self-awareness. I think also about the combination of that 29th degree. And so I like to play with a couple different degree theories. And so, of course, the anaretic degree with the 29th degree. So there's something Saturnian around mastery. And I view it as a mastery of self-trust and also the mastery of being able to hold in the unknown, because you have to kind of inherently be in the unknown when you're just leaning into instinct. Like it's not rational. It's not going to be fully understood by our minds, but in our bodies. But if we are able to master that, like I can hold this, I can hold this tension, or I can hold this excitement or this enthusiasm, and then therefore I can channel it, and therefore I can decide my adventure, choose my adventure from that energy. And then another way I like to look at that 29th degree is the association with Leo being seen. This is the degree theory by Nikola Stoyanovich, and talking about each degree having an association with an archetype. So for me, and just my personal experimentation, I've definitely noticed there's something around being seen with that 29th degree, being seen and being a master. So being seen for being a master. being really good at it. So this is a really great time for all of us to think back to, okay, what have I learned since the last new moon in Aries? And then even taking it back a little farther, because we're in this beautiful reflection zone, reflecting on the whole, prior 6 months since the last eclipse season. And then even beyond that, 19 years. I mean, all of these cycles within cycles. So really getting, I would say, joyfully compassionate and curious with ourselves. Like, what have I mastered in this area that maybe I'm not even fully aware of because it's so close to me? It will definitely depend on where you have all of this going on in your chart. But what is that area that holds these Aries degrees? And what might you already be a master at that is now just going to come into your awareness in a new way? Feels really exciting.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm feeling so excited hearing both Kaylin and Nura, hearing you both speak. And I love this and kind of looking at, I really feel like this eclipse season, starting with this 29-degree Aries eclipse, it feels like this kind of big cosmic reorientation and recalibration, with the first eclipse being in Aries. I mean, this is our first eclipse that we're having on the Aries Libra axis that we'll have over, the next year and a half as the nodes move into the Aries Libra axis. They're going to move into the Aries Libra axis in, I believe, July of this year. And the sun and moon with this solar eclipse in Aries are fairly close to the North Node in early Taurus at this point. So it's bringing in all of this new energy, being so close to the North Node. And I feel like with this eclipse being square to Pluto, Pluto is at 0 degrees of Aquarius at the time of this eclipse. And it's like, when we have squares, sometimes it can be like a blind spot can be revealed, because a square is like a 90-degree angle. And so I can't see my fingers that are perfectly like 90 degrees from that way. We have these blind spots, but the blind spots get revealed. And then we have a new way of meeting that energy. It's like through the squaring signs, which have an Aries and it's actually Aries and Capricorn, that square, but because it's like Pluto's at 0 degrees of Aquarius, there's still that squaring energy. And it like invites a new way of meeting reality, of meeting energy, trying things in new ways. And so I feel like with Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius and kind of just coming out of Capricorn, it's like whatever the old programming from, however you want to call it, like the dominator culture, the patriarchal culture, whatever kind of old programming lived within us, I see this eclipse as really this like portal to really like transmute that and to meet reality in new ways, free of that programming. With Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius about freedom, liberation, right? Living in our radical individuality, living in our truth. And so I see this, like how I kind of sense into it is this old ways of being, these like maybe deeply rooted programmings that some of us maybe have experienced for many lifetimes, an opportunity to really transmute that with how Pluto is playing into this eclipse and this opening up this whole new way of meeting reality in Aries. It's like just showing up instinctually in the present moment, free of the programming. It's just moving with the flow of inspiration. And Aries is so much about the flow of our life force energy. And so I see all of this like through transmuting through some of that old programming, just the flow of our life force energy opening up and moving in the direction of our inspiration. Aries is about opening up new pathways, trailblazing forward with what lights us up, what we're inspired by. And it's like, wow, if we don't have some of that old programming, how could we just like go for it and go in the direction of what lights us up? And what is that going to open up? I don't know. I just feel all this possibility here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything. Like it's just, the energy feels really uplifting, right? And And there's this movement that we started with the equinox and with the new moon. And now with Aries, it's like we have this momentum. What I feel with this eclipse is a little bit of like, stop. Like there is this energy, it's Sun, Jupiter in Aries. It's like, this is what I want, this is what I desire. And then new moon and new opportunity. And then it's squaring Pluto. It's like, okay, you also create something for humanity. It's like, what is the shadow of the humanity and how you are a part of it. So the more we embrace our own shadows and we do our work and we go into deep into who we are and our own power, then the whole humanity also embrace the power. It's like this very interesting square between Aries, I am, and Capricorn moving into Aquarius. We are together. And then the movement with the Mercury retrograde for me is fascinating, because it's like, okay, new moon, 2 new moons in Aries, let's go. And then Mercury retrograde in Taurus. So it's like, it's this momentum is like, stop, feel it. So wherever we are initiating, consider your body, consider your value as well. And with economy, I think this really weave into all the crises that we are experiencing globally. I'm in Spain and it's the same. You're all in the States, like wherever we are, there is this economical transition and transformation, because the whole system is moving into something different. But the something different is not yet born. So in Taurus, I think we are like anchoring our value, and all the situations where we are not valuing our work or our pleasures, and how can we work from a space of enjoyment with the body as well. Like it's this physical, tangible. And I think like the movement is so interesting in 29 degrees, because the moon will be very quickly into Taurus, and the movement from cardinal fire, first sign of the zodiac, into fixed earth, really stable. So Aries doesn't really sustain the energy, it just starts, and then other people come along and then sustain the energy. So this is why the square to Pluto is very interesting, because it's like we need each other. We are not all supposed to do everything, and whoever has more Aries energy will be the one who initiates. Whoever has more Taurus energy will be the one who sustain and really make it real. And if we really co-create, more things can be accomplished together.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And I just want to say that we talk a lot about 29 Aries, but I also think 15 Taurus is important because it represents the cross quarter point between the spring equinox and the June solstice, or the March equinox and the June solstice. So when the sun reaches 15 Taurus, we're at the halfway point between those two seasons. And that's where Mercury is stationing retrograde on April 21st, 15 Taurus. So, and we're going to have the cross quarter point happening while we're in the retrograde. In fact, I think it stations direct on May 5th, which is, it's either the 4th or the 5th when the sun's reaching 15 Taurus. I didn't really look that up, but it's usually on the 5th when it reaches 15 Taurus. So we've got the station point happening with the cross quarter point of 15 Taurus as well. And I love what you were saying, Mar, about, because Aries is very much about initiation and action. Let's just go do it. Let's not think about it too much. Let's just do it. Whereas Taurus might be like, maybe we should think about that a little bit. Maybe we should have a plan. Maybe it should be a pleasurable plan, something that we can really get into and enjoy doing, right? And then there's those of us who may have a little bit of both. So then it's like, it's like part of you wants to push forward, part of you wants to say, wait, whoa, let's think about it. So it might be an interesting time. And how do we learn to trust, as I love what you were saying about that, trusting our knowing around what to do. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that piece in. And also Mercury, Pluto stationing retrograde on May 1st, and Mercury conjunct the sun, retrograde Mercury conjunct the sun on May 1st. So there's a lot that's going to be happening as we come up to that eclipse on May 5th, that closes the eclipse window. So I'll turn that over to others to speak into.
I always think of everything that happens in the eclipse portal, it kind of carries throughout until we have the next eclipse portal. So the Mercury retrograde, the Pluto retrograde, the whole new Mercury cycle beginning in the sign of Taurus. There's so much around exactly what you were saying, like how to live into the movement that wants to happen and the slowness. And for that reason, I actually think this Mercury retrograde will be really juicy. I have a feeling people will really enjoy that aspect of it, because the eclipse portal, I've always felt it like a slingshot, like I'm getting kind of wound up and pulled back and then like flying out into whatever is coming next. And that can sometimes feel a little bit ungrounding. But to have that Mercury retrograde to remind us to go slow and think about what feels good. And it's like, do I have to rush into this decision? Even if I'm really excited about it, do I have to rush into it? We can take our time. And then considering that the full moon lunar eclipse is also happening on Beltane, and it's bringing in the energy of Taurus Scorpio too. I feel like this goes back to what you were saying, Maud, around what we get to heal and release. I think everybody's been speaking to it, what we get to release around how we are showing up in the now and into the future, connecting with the blind spots of our own emotional reality. It feels like with the Scorpio, and we've been working on this for such a long time now that we've done a lot. And usually it's almost like the final remnants of the shadow, they can sometimes feel a little bit surprising. And that surprise factor might still be present, because by that time with the sun at that 15-degree point of Taurus will be approaching that conjunction with Uranus. So there's going to be, again, and that's going to happen May 9th. So there is going to be a little bit of a surprise factor, I think, around what comes up for us. And so especially if you've been feeling this, like, I don't know, in the doldrums, maybe wherever you're living, it's like still feeling like winter and you're like ready for spring. And I know when you see the energy of spring reflected outside of you, like visually in nature, it can start to feel more like that inside of you too. But that whole Sun Uranus, it feels like that'll be a big time when we really take the acceleration forward. That will also be just a few days before Mercury is direct at 5 degrees Taurus. That'll be May 14th. When Mercury stations direct. So it's almost like we get to have this nice pause in suspended animation to collect ourselves. I kind of view it as this, there's a vision coming to me, but kind of like a life review where you kind of get to be that neutral, objective observer. Maybe that's the quality of the Pluto in Aquarius, kind of helping us to train our thoughts and our focus to really like, what do we want to put our attention on around, what is in our sphere of influence. And so if we can just back up and zoom out a little bit and watch the things unfold, and then maybe form an opinion about it later, like maybe take some action after we can see these are just the patterns coming through. And then maybe we don't take things so personally, especially the things that want to leave. Usually eclipse portals are when either something's rushing in or rushing out. So we can kind of let those movements happen with a little bit more neutrality.
I love that. And I love that you brought in, Nora, that what happens, kind of what the energy that's kind of seated during eclipse season does tend to ripple out till the next eclipse season, because it does feel like the last eclipse season we had in October and November of last year, the sun was with the South Node. And so it was this big release, and it was the South Node in Scorpio. And kind of what I intuitively felt was it was this big releasing of all the shame programming that so many of us have carried, just clearing all of that, like unworthiness programming, that not enough programming that so many of us have been conditioned into, which of course is not our truth and not our essence, but so many of us have been conditioned into that. And so it seemed like this really, really long period of just more and more coming up and clearing out. And it does feel like this eclipse season, I feel all this new energy coming in, being seeded. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see it all happening now, but being seeded. But also it still feels like this huge clearing out. I mean, it's simultaneous. That's why it feels like this reorientation. And especially with Mercury being in retrograde, that follows right after this Aries solar eclipse. Mercury retrogrades are really, I see them as like the reorientations, recalibrations of the way we think, the way we perceive reality, our perception, our awareness. And so if we look at Mercury retrograde in Taurus, one of the big things we might be reorienting is is around our self-worth, because Taurus represents our self-worth, our self-value. And so it feels like this eclipse season is this big opportunity to really transmute. It's like, where is that programming still in there? Any not enough, any feeling not worthy enough, all of that. And with this Mercury retrograde, it really supports, okay, what needs to be transmuted, what can be healed, and this new way of perceiving ourselves and this new way of thinking and showing up to the world. And we also might have a recalibration around our values. What do we value? That's another kind of Taurus thing. We might have a reorientation around our relationship to money or resources. I mean, there's just so much opportunity here. And Taurus, I can, really, I'm always inspired by Kaylin, like the art of receiving, and Taurus being connected to our ability to experience pleasure. And, our connection to our self-worth is very much related to what do we allow ourselves to receive? How much pleasure do we allow ourselves to receive? And receiving can mean lots of different things. It doesn't have to mean receiving a tangible thing from someone else or life. It can mean lots of different things, but it's like, how open and available are we to the fertility of life, the abundance of life? There's usually so much more available to us to experience from life than we ever realize. And so I see if we can slow down. I was getting all amped up with the Aries energy, kind of tuning into that. And I'm an Aries sun. But if we can slow down, there's just so much powerful reorientation. And it kind of feels like reorientation within our body, our somatic experience, how we how we allow our body wisdom to guide us. And it's really this call to come in and trust the wisdom of our body and our sensual knowing and our felt knowing, that really feels like coming, this big theme of this retrograde season retrograde season and eclipse season. And I often personally, this is just me, my approach, and with eclipses and the 2-week window between eclipses, I personally don't plan a lot. I usually always clear my work schedule right around the eclipses, the 2 weeks in between. I typically don't plan any type of big event because there is this unpredictable kind of element with eclipses. The energy gets accelerated, the energy gets intense. So just knowing that can be helpful sometimes to kind of check in. Okay, when do I need to retreat? When do I need to just kind of be with myself instead of maybe kind of getting amped up and like pulled into, like we might be more likely to be swept into someone else's current of intensity that's maybe not even ours. So sometimes it can be helpful to know, the energy of eclipses are intense, and that we don't have to always get like swept up in everybody else's intensity as well.
And something I love that you said that you don't plan anything, because in my case, I will say that I do normally the opposite. So it's interesting for people also to feel into what does it feel right for you with eclipses. For me, normally, especially if it's a new moon eclipse, with the North Node, is being always like this energy of support, of saying, take a leap and go for it. And with the lunar eclipse, with Mercury retrograde, what I will invite to everyone is to really open to other ways of play with how we perceive the world, and simplify. like there is a lot in Taurus, and there is in the lunar eclipse, it's only the moon and the south node in Scorpio saying like all the complexity, all the traumas we have had, all the experiences that they're really painful and deep. And in Taurus is just enjoy a sunset, a good meal, a massage, a dance, a journal, take time, taste life, like slow down and flavor whatever is happening around, and allow that the nature talks to you, that the birds talk to you, and feel it. Like in your case, are you initiating something, or are you retrieving from the world to go into your cocoon? Like, it will be different. Like for me, I'm organizing a summit. It will be in Spanish, but it was very interesting. It was in another date, and the universe just play with me to have it in the new moon eclipse season. I'm like, why I'm doing this? And why I'm doing a launching during Mercury retrograde? Why do I need to be this astrologer who is a rebel? Because like we cannot use astrology only to control life, like to have everything planned. So it's like this knowing that these are the energies available. How can we flow with them and experience how do they feel for us? So it's interesting how it's different. So I think it was very nice that we are approaching this in two different ways, and then maybe next video we can say if at the end Jamie did a lot and I just got sick and then stayed at home. Like, who knows, right? We don't control life. I think that is something that is also a message for this season. And with the Scorpio and with Pluto, there is a lot of control issues. And it's like life is beyond what we can really control. So we are just here to enjoy.
I love that, Tamar.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say a little note. Yeah, I always feel like that's what a beautiful thing about eclipses is letting go of expectations, letting go of outcomes, letting go of wanting things to be a certain way, because eclipses are course corrections. I kind of feel they're course corrections to our highest path forward. And so there's a fated, there's a destined element. So if our ego is trying to control that this is the way things are going to be, that's usually where a lot of the intensity happens. And we can just let go and let go of the expectations and let life kind of course correct us to where we're meant to be. That's where I feel like the magic and the beauty happens. So I love that you brought that in.
I love all of this so much. And I feel like we're tapping into something really important with all of this that, again, is reminding me of the Saturn and Pisces. Like, there's something I think because we're just moving into it, it's like I keep forgetting, like, oh yeah, like this huge new foundation that we're creating for our life is around mastering our flow state. And flow means it's like the opposite of planning. So that's also being activated by Mars in Cancer, which is that trine by sign energy. We had an exact Mars Saturn trine, and then there's also with Mars south node, and then there will be Saturn with the south node, and then eventually Venus and Saturn. So there's a lot happening in the realm of the Pisces, sort of completely surrendering into all of that. And this, it kind of, to me, it brings in that Taurus piece again with that sextile, that natural sextile to Pisces. So especially when Jupiter enters Taurus, May 15th, we'll have that entry of the sextile by sign to Saturn. And that will, I think, offer a lot more of this opportunity for simplification, not necessarily so that we're doing nothing, but simplification so that we can meet the moment as it is. And that feels like that'll be a big part of the theme of Jupiter's time in Taurus, which I personally am very excited about. That'll be my Jupiter return next year. But feeling that how can we simplify so that we can be with what is? And I just wanted to share these cards because it feels like the conversation that we're having is so connected to what I pulled, just asking, what will be the energy that we can kind of look forward to and lean into over this month. So of course, economic things came up with the 6 of Pentacles, but I always see this as a redistribution of where we're putting our attention and our money and finances. And then the King of Swords with this clarification, this clarity, this mastery of personal boundaries, putting them together in terms of, all that we've been talking about with Pluto and Aquarius and the new system, and maybe how can we sort of mentally hold ourselves together in times of change, because depends on what your first reaction is. Is it to go to panic mode? Is it to go into a fear space, a scarcity space, right? Like, who are you in this card? Are you the one who is receiving, who's not receiving, who's jealous of the one receiving? Are you the giver? Like, we're all of these archetypes at different times of our lives. And then the advice around all of that, we got double queen energy. So not surprising in this group that that's what I would pull, but the Queen of Wands and the Queen of Pentacles. So what are we, are we willing to be those rebels like Mar brought in? How do we get to flow with this and be really self-trusting and confident? But also, what are we focusing our attention on, and what are we manifesting? Not necessarily from this controlling space, but just from where we're putting our energy and what are the choices that we're making with what's available. I have this practice where I'm always just asking, what is available to me? May I see my options clearly? May I see what's available to me in this moment? And then I trust that I'll be able to take advantage of it, to use it, to channel it, to flow it wherever it needs to go. So that feels like the opportunity on the table.
That's beautiful. I feel like maybe we should wrap this up, and maybe what we could do is have each person just say 2 sentences, if you can do that, about Jupiter and Taurus, because we'll have more time to talk about that. It's going to be there for a year or so. But it is a big feature of what's happening as we complete this Taurus solar month. So I'll just say, for me, and I love that you brought in the receiving thing, Jamie, because we have been taught it is more blessed to give than receive. But the original translation was, it's more blessed to give than to take something that's not yours. And that's a whole different energy. And so we've been conditioned and trained not to receive. Even my grandmother would never receive anything from anybody because she didn't want to owe them. And so how are we receiving? Can we receive a compliment? Can we receive the beauty of a day, or of just hanging out with friends, or whatever it is? It's like, how are we receiving it? And perhaps with Jupiter and Taurus, a great practice would be to have a gratitude journal, the things that you're grateful for that you get to receive, and receive it at an even deeper level. So that's what I'm saying about that, and pass it on, and let's try to keep it brief. So we can wrap this up.
I'll just say expansion of trusting our body wisdom.
Beautiful.
Amazing. I would say, as quickly as I can, because there's so much to say about Jupiter always, but the non-attachment that would allow us to be in that space of receptivity. So not feeling like we need to control something in order to be able to receive it.
For me, it will be aini. That is an Inca word that it means sacred reciprocity. So it's like every time we give, we receive, maybe not from that person, but maybe from another person. And how can we build societies where we don't take things for free? Because there is nothing really for free. So we also value other people, work, time, and energy to be valued for other people, for our work, time, and energy. So I think observing ourselves when we are just chasing for something for free is something that is being really up for me.
Beautiful. I love this so much. And the whole idea that what we're doing with Jupiter and Taurus, we have a year to really restore the garden of earthly delight. So until we meet again, thank you all so much for joining us, and for using this time in the best way that you possibly can.